Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
This is Banned from Ringside.
Tonight on the Banned from Ringside podcast, we're going to wrap up the final 3 nights of the G1 32 tournament? Yes, 32 tournament. We're going 31. To 31. Damn, G1 31. Yeah, you're right. We're talking about AEW, Rampage from and Dynamite from last week, and we're going to talk about the infamous Crown Jewel pay-per-view card that happened this afternoon in Saudi Arabia. That and a whole bunch more this week on the Banned from Ringside podcast. Ditch that 9 to 5. It's time to feel alive. What up, Marks? It's your boy JCB, your special guest host, Jason Cornelius Bell, a.k.a. Olivia Newton-Job. And out there in Portland, Oregon, BFR West, holding it down. Beer Zach Pullman. Tell me something good.
Like Ibushi once said, ain't that a kick in the head?
Ooh,
oh, man, my heart goes out to Ibushi.
You wrong, man. We ain't even found out what happened.
I feel so bad for this guy.
We ain't even found out what happened to Ibushi yet. You were already cracking jokes.
Oh, man, no, it's just, that's how I deal with trauma is through humor, in case I haven't found out over 250 plus episodes. we have a rough one count.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, I was going to say, I woke up early this morning to try to watch it live, and my body was just like, no, don't do it. Go back to sleep. So then I had my alarm clock on my phone set for 7 o'clock. I was like, okay, this is the time to get up so that way you don't get spoilers. And man, I'm kind of glad I didn't get a spoiler, but I kind of wish I did, because we'll talk about that here in a little bit, because it's plenty to talk about. Just a couple quick heads up. Obviously, no Bill this week. Bill is on assignment with wife and Edna May Bebe. So shout out to the Vegas. We will see you next week. Point number 2, there are chock full of spoilers in this podcast. I'm sure as we're recording, it is late on Thursday night. It is about 11, almost 12 o'clock my time being Central Standard. So I would like to think that everybody watched Crown Jewel and the G1 and we're up to date. But if you're not, this is it. Here it is. Chalk spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched either or, you might want to take note from this point on, because we are going to talk about both events that happened today. And obviously we'll talk about AEW, Rampage, and Dynamite from last Friday. So without further ado, let's get to that 3 count. I'll kick it off the 1 count. We're going to talk about the final days of the G1. When we left off last, we went through nights 11 through 16. So basically we had the A block final, the B block final, and then the ultimate G1 final. Let's talk about the A block final, block first, night 17, if you will. The first 2 matches, not necessarily too important, but we can kind of glaze over them a little bit. Great-O-Khan had his walkover match with Naito, but his opponent was Kojima. Decent match. Okan wins. Yano versus Ishii. I'll speak on this one first, because this is kind of what, we'll bounce back and forth on this one. I kind of was thinking that Ishii was going to win this and just kind of roll the rest of the way after losing the first 3 to win the last 6 and get to 12 points. Obviously, I was wrong. Fuck Yano per usual. Yano wins. What did you think about Yano versus Ishii?
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought the same thing, but wasn't meant to be, and Yano is the spoiler. That's his role. Mm-hmm. And besides, the popcorn match, the comedy match, he's the wild card, right? He's like chaotic neutral. If you're a D&D fan. You never know where it's going to happen, and you never know where he's going to end up. But yeah, and as far as Yano matches go, this was good.
Yeah, we've seen glimpses of his amateur background when he's done, the belly to bellies and things like that. And that's for a guy that really, I don't hate Yano. It's an irrational hatred of Yano. It all just stems back to when we started watching New Japan and Naito lost to Yano, and that really just set it off because I was really starting to get into Naito, and all of a sudden here comes Yano, who I thought was going to be the easy walkover match. And of course, like Two Beer said, Yano is the ultimate spoiler. He beats Naito, and that from that point on, it's just been, anytime I've seen him, it's just red. Personally, I would like to see, if we're going to do Yano matches where it's comedy, just throw in a little amateur wrestling. That's really all I can ask for at this point. To say that he's to go back to the way it was is not going to happen. To change him now is probably impractical. If you can meet me somewhere in the middle in that gray, I would be okay with Yano, but that's just me. Let's move on to the next match where it really starts to get you interesting and it really starts to mean something. You had Shingo Takagi versus Yujiro Takahashi. So in this scenario, Shingo has to win. He has to win, and then he has to have other things happen. I believe it was a ZSJ loss, and then Ibushi would have to lose as well. Unfortunately, Shingo doesn't win. He doesn't lose. It ends up being a double count out. It officially goes in as a draw, and he gets 1 point. So he moves from 12 to 13. So as it stood, Shingo leads the A block before the last two matches. Thoughts on Shingo versus Yujiro Takahashi?
I don't mind the general booking, having those double countouts, having those draws. It's kind of part of the tournament. It did disappoint me because, Takagi's my guy, but I also didn't love the execution of it, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was great, but as far as like a booking maneuver, if you're playing GM, if you got the notebook and the pencil, it makes sense to do something like this. So, because, you can't have Yujiro beat the champion, let alone such a strong champion.
Right.
So I get it. So, I mean, disappointing, but understandable. So,
and now I guess I would piggyback on that statement. I guess the fact that they deemed it a draw and both guys get a point is the only kind of redeeming quality out of this. The match itself was okay. I just thought that Shingo would just come in and just take care of business, win the 2 points, and then lose on tiebreakers in some form or fashion. But obviously not the case. I agree with you. I just don't like the way they did the double count out. It just seemed a little lazy, I guess, for lack of a better word. I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't have a problem with it. Just the way they went about it, not necessarily the way I would have done it. Moving on to the next match. So you have Zack Sabre Jr. versus Tongo Loa. So now basically Zack Sabre Jr. at this point doesn't have his destiny in his own hands, which is kind of crazy to think about when he came out so strong, tapping out people left and right, broke my boy Naito in the first match. And now he's facing Tongo Loa, who seemingly should be a guy he should beat. But that's why we have the matches, ladies and gentlemen. Tongo Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr. in one of the bigger upsets of the tournament. What did you think about the booking of Tongo Loa going over Zack Sabre Jr. after he was booked so strong to start?
Surprising, but I also understand it. Like, he is getting a title shot because he beat the champion. He came out so hot, and he was the star of the first half of the G1, just submitting everybody. When we were doing the podcast earlier and when we're talking about it, and even like when Kevin Kelly's talking about it, Kevin Kelly said it really well after like his first three matches. He's like, I don't want to say that he's on easy street after this because anything can happen and the tournament gets more grueling, but he took out his toughest three competitors and he submitted all of them right in a row. So, he was made to look strong and he's going to be at the top of the card, whether whatever shows, coming up, whatever they decide to choose, just sprinkle him in there. He's going to get a title shot. So
Power Struggle is up next.
Yeah. So him taking this loss is fine. And, you get, a little bit of shine on Tama Tonga. Like, that's cool. I'm sorry, Tangaloa. I did it again. I know.
You can't tell your GODs apart.
Yeah.
It's good to see that Bill still has his influence here.
Exactly. But yeah, definitely surprising. And then, it was going to come down to Kinta and Ibushi. And apparently I didn't realize this, but I heard it on like Observer Radio. This had been leaked like months and months ago. Somebody had seen, I don't know if it was like much like Tony Khan, somebody snapped a picture or something happened where I can't remember the circumstances, but it was leaked that essentially the winner of Ibushi versus Kinta was going to be in the finals. So whether that was determined or whether, they were undecided on who it was going to be and it was going to come down to one of those two guys. But yeah, I mean, it went all the way to that, and that's what we got.
Interesting. So let's talk about the final match of the A block. Ibushi versus Kinta. Now, Ibushi coming in. He's at 12 points. Shingo's at 13. Kinta's at 12 points. So basically, this is a winner-take-all scenario unless you have a draw. In this case, they didn't have a draw. They had a barn burner match. Kota Ibushi, once again, makes history, winning the A block again for, what is it, the third straight year?
He won A block, or he won the block for the fourth straight year.
And then this is his third straight final.
Third straight. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. It was third straight final. Yeah. But yeah, that's what it was. Third straight final.
Rarefied air for.
Oh, wait, no, he had won. Sorry, he had won 4 years, but if he would have won the final, it would have been the third straight final that he won. That's where.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. Yeah, because he won back to back. Okay, you're right. Rarefied air, whether you like it or not. I was a little surprised that this is the way they went. Obviously, I picked Shingo to start and then switched it to Zack Sabre Jr., but I don't necessarily have a problem with this. Kota Ibushi, and I'm getting ready to kind of spoil it a little bit, has had a rough 2021 considering, where he's been at one point being the undisputed champion, getting COVID, losing the title, not in that order. And then,
man, he was that guy that never had the big title because he would never sign a contract. And then he signs a lifetime contract.
And then all this crazy shit happens.
New Japan, wins the title, and then it's almost like been like a curse to his career. Like, I don't really believe in that aspect of the supernatural or whatever, but it sucks.
No, actually, Bill put it on our text thread, or he might have just texted this to me or whatever. He was just like, dude, this G1 is cursed. I was like, no, I think New Japan is kind of cursed at this point. It's not just the G1. There's
the world.
Yeah, okay. There's been other things outside the G1 that's kind of fucked shit up. But nonetheless, just getting back to the point, Kota Ibushi beats Kinta. Kinta comes out with all kinds of fuckery. I guess he sent out a tweet basically saying, anything necessary, all things necessary, whatever the case may be. Basically, all kind of fuckery was going to be, in play, and he used all kind of fuckery. The exposed turnbuckle has been his friend pretty much throughout this tournament. That was getting ready to come into play until Kota Ibushi blocked it. He ends up going over and winning the match and ultimately winning the A block with 14 points. So obviously Kota Ibushi wins the A block. So let's jump to the B block real quick. Unfortunately, there is not really much to talk about on the B block side until we get to the main event where you have one Kazuchika Okada, 7 wins, 1 loss versus the undefeated Jeff Cobb at 8-0. And I'll just say this for myself, and I'll throw it to you, Zach. This match lived up to the hype. What did you think?
Oh, totally. It was awesome. It was so much fun. I loved the constant. They start off super fast, super hot, going for finishers right away. Like Cobb was like, the whole story of the match was Cobb was trying to hit the Tour of the Island right from the beginning, and he just could not hit it. And there was even a point where he went to hit it off the top rope, and Okada had this beautiful DDT counter, like off of the top rope. It was just insane.
I think that's how Cobb has the tape around his trapezius on the final night of G1. But go ahead.
Yeah, it was just a real like barn burner of a match, and didn't quite go all the way in the distance, but they did at least get to the 20-minute call. So you had the story where Okada had to beat Cobb. All Cobb had to do was hang on. And it's funny because Cobb was going all out.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. Right. All he had to do was just go 30 minutes and not get pinned. And Jeff Cobb was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm trying to beat the Rainmaker. And like you said, it came right off the jump. The double pile driver spot, I thought that was a really great spot. It just
man, that was so good. And only a guy like Cobb can pull that off.
Right. And that's why I was just like, okay, see, that's when I was like, maybe this is going to happen. But ultimately, and I said it, leading up to this point, a part of me kind of knew as the G1 went along that this was Okada's G1, at least on the B-side block to win. Ultimately, like I said, he does win it. Okada goes over Jeff Cobb in a beautiful, 22-minute match. Jeff Cobb loses nothing, in my opinion, out of this. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in some sort of Wrestle Kingdom night 1, 2, or 3 because he's basically beating everybody in the G1, Shingo included. So he has to be in this title picture in some form or fashion. He might be in there sooner versus later once we talk about the G1 final. And then at that point, you can kind of start figuring out what Jeff Cobb is going to do moving forward. So you have... Well,
and the real cool...
No, go ahead.
Real cool thing about this tournament in general, when you think about it, especially with the dynamic of the Naito injury and the COVID, thing, scare looming over us. Like one guy gets COVID, it fucks everything up. Mm-hmm. They did such a great job. Like we talk about the quality of the matches. We don't often talk about how masterful the booking is, and not just in a sense of that it's complicated, right? Like It is very complicated, but it's masterful in the sense that it got so many people over. We talked about Zack Saber and his way of getting the way they got him over. You had Ibushi who started off slow, ends up making it to the finals, and in the meantime, also pins the champion. So we got two strong title contenders out of this on the A block side.
Right.
And then on the B block side, you have Jeff Cobb, who is for New Japan like an up-and-comer. Shit, it was, 3-4 years ago, we were watching him wrestle in a VFW in Alton, Illinois, So,
true story,
this
dog.
guy makes New Japan World history by going the longest anyone has ever gone on an undefeated streak in the G1 and loses the block. But, he loses to a dynasty dude, Okada, the highest paid guy in the company, it's fine. The guy's over. And like you said, we're going to see him at Wrestle Kingdom. He's going to be a big player. So even though he didn't win the whole thing, it's not necessarily always about who wins a specific match. It's getting people over in the meantime.
Yeah.
And they did a fantastic job.
No, for sure. I was going to say, in this scenario, this is why I like New Japan more than most others. Stardom is probably my second favorite. Seeds are planted at some point, and you just have to remember these seeds are planted because it's all long-term planning, whether it's Gato doing 5 years of long-term planning or 6 months or whatever the case may be. What happens now will ultimately come back to harvest in January 2022, February 2022, whatever the case may be. It's really all long-term booking. The reason why I like Jeff Cobb versus Okada right here as the tiebreaker because it means so much. Just as the tiebreaker, whenever it was going to happen, it just so happened to be the final night of the G1. And then on top of it, you have Jeff Cobb's historic run up to this point. You got Okada matching him basically, step for step, minus the banana slip in the tailpipe versus Tonga. I mean, you really couldn't ask for much more on the B block side in a tournament where people weren't necessarily too excited about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, not like poo-pooing it, but I was definitely kind of ho-hum. Like, I remember, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago on the podcast, I was just like, man, I was like, this doesn't look great. And you were just like, and I was like, don't hate me. But I wasn't like as excited as previous years because those years were just so over the top stacked and they made the most of it.
For sure. And I think all things considered, this G1, it's not going to be the best G1, but they did have their moments. There's going to be things that we're going to talk about moving forward. A pop of the year, oh shit, wow moment of the year. Chase beating Tanahashi is a oh shit moment. Kota Ibushi losing to Yujiro day one of the G1 tournament. That's one of them oh shit moments. So, I mean, I get what everybody was saying, and I understand that, but I think ultimately this G1 delivered. It's not going to be remembered as one of the best, but I think that once again it delivered. But we are going to, unfortunately,
it's going to be remembered.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready. That's where we're getting ready to get into is the final night of the G1. There's a couple things I want to touch on. As long as we're talking about Kota Ibushi, let's just keep on that theme. Obviously, Kota Ibushi versus Okada was the G1 final. A block winner Ibushi, B block winner Okada. It ends up being a referee stoppage after Kota Ibushi attempts a Phoenix Splash and apparently dislocates his wrist or his shoulder or something along those lines. Now, just to kind of quickly set it up, it was Ibushi doing the Phoenix Splash back facing to Okada, so his chest is facing the crowd. As he lands, it's not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, I mean, we've seen plenty of New Japan, but I didn't think it was anything that we hadn't seen before on a missed spot, whether it's a moonsault or in this case the Phoenix Splash or whatever the case may be. He being Ibushi just stayed on the mat so long. That's where I thought maybe it might be a problem. The crowd started to get into it, and then Red Shoes basically called the match at that point. Thoughts on the G1 anticlimactic final, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, this was, if you weren't going to have like Shingo in it, this was the quintessential match that you would want. Like, if you're just a fanboy and you're booking and you're not good at doing the complicated stuff, you're just like, I just want Ibushi and Okada in the final. Makes sense, right? I mean, right. Like, that's like the best match you can book. I mean, they had a 5.5-star match at Wrestle Kingdom last year. I think I know it was talked about as far as match of the year for the Beavers. For sure. It was in the discussion. They've had 5-star matches before that. So that, they were on the way, and
yeah.
I had to play this back because it wasn't a horrific scene. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I'm watching
I had to rewind it too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, he hits the mat, and he's down for a while, and then they call it, and I was like,
what the
shit?
Fuck?
Like, I didn't wait to see. I just like went back and I watched it because I was like, I got to see like what's going on, and you could tell he landed like with his arm down. But I mean, you always, if you're landing, from a big splash on the top rope, you're gonna land, with your forearm,
right,
down like in your knees. And it didn't look bad, but apparently it was terrible. And, Okada, like, really accepted everything with class. And you could tell, like, Ibushi, once you watched it, like, he's on the ground. They've already called the match. It's been, like, almost 5 minutes. And Ibushi's like, I can go. He's like, I can go right now.
Down.
And Okada has to, like, tell him, Yeah, Okada's like got his finger up like with the number one, and he's like, "We'll do it again.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it again."
Why don't you let them pop whatever it is that is dislocated back into place before we start talking about another match? I'm watching it like partially in shock because I'm like, damn, this sucks. It didn't look bad like you said, but I had this match, kind of built up in my mind. The match was going pretty much the way I thought it was going to go. And then a normal, quote unquote, a normal spot like this happens. And then they call the match. I'm like, man, this is crazy. I really thought we were going to get, a clean, legit finish. And then one of these two guys were going to go on and go to Wrestle Kingdom. It was one of those things where it was so weird because now we made fun of Ishii, grabbing this after somebody after the match, I still want more. This motherfucker's got a dislocated limb and he's like, no, I'm good. No, dude, sit your narrow ass down. This is done. We need you back for January 2022. So just sit there, chill the fuck out. We're going to come back here in a little bit. Ultimately, it was, like I said, we were on the way to maybe another instant classic. Unfortunately, Kota Ibushi did get hurt. I don't know. I haven't heard anything specific of what this injury is. Have you heard anything?
I have not heard anything. No, the only thing I saw was that Meltzer tweeted that it was a dislocated shoulder and that it had happened. Not that had happened, but that he had previously hurt himself on that move in a similar fashion in the past. So I know if one thing with dislocated shoulders, I feel like I've torn something in my shoulder before because my shoulder will pop out of a socket pretty easily and pop right back in. Even if I just sit up too fast, in bed, and it's excruciating. It just pops in or pops out and pops right back in. I can only imagine if it pops out and stays out
right.
It did for Ibushi, because you could tell they were trying to
yeah, they did the circle or whatever to kind of get his shoulder back into place. I was like, oh god, that's when I was just kind of getting a little squeamish because I was like, I can only imagine what was happening there, and Kota Ibushi being the unwilling patient, just no, I can still go. And everybody's like, dude, you need to sit your ass down so we can get this Joker back in place. Disappointing.
I do think that was the finish, though. I don't think that was the finish. I do think that was the outcome. Whenever this was happening, I mean, it could have gone either way because you could have had this historic three-peat,
right. Or
but
the first time that Okada wins in 7 years. What do you think that was going to happen if Kota Ibushi didn't get hurt? Who wins that match?
I think it was Okada because if you think about things say you just see with Vince and WWE, right? Shit hits the fan. You kind of rely on Old Faithful, and you kind of go back to Brock and Goldberg and these guys, right? Well, Okada's not been at the forefront of this promotion in a while, and they got hurt, the most out of anybody in the pandemic as far as the large influential promotion. So I think you kind of go back and lean on your boy Okada, and when you're thinking Wrestle Kingdom and you're doing these multiple nights, that's the play. Even though Ibushi is completely capable of that too,
for sure.
But I think that it was time for Okada to have, the spotlight again.
No, I agree. It's not a knock against Ibushi by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, obviously they gave him the IWGP title for a reason. It just so happens that he got caught COVID, and then you had to take the title off from him. And now this has happened. It's kind of been a snake bit year for Ibushi and New Japan in general. I'll just say this. Fingers crossed, I expect him to be a part of Wrestle Kingdom in some form or fashion. You got 3 fucking nights. If he's healthy, they'll figure out a way to shoehorn him in. Worst case scenario, he holds a claim over Shingo. I would assume Shingo goes the rest of the year without losing the title? Question mark?
I think he takes it to Wrestle Kingdom for sure. Past that,
all bets are off. Yeah, I was going to say
he is such a strong champion and such a really a generational talent in the vein of Okada and Ibushi, because when you're talking about these guys, they're generational talents. They're like best of our lifetimes, you know, like as far as their generation, they are the peak. They are the pinnacle, you know, and yeah, so he's a strong champion, and there's no reason to take it off somebody that can just go out there and go like that.
No, Okada can go 2 nights if you had to, and depending on how Japan looks, health-wise, whatever the case may be, you could have more individuals coming over, maybe Jay White, maybe Will Ospreay. Weird shit can happen between now and January 2022. I'll just say this. I agree with you on this. Ultimately, I think Okada was booked to win this thing. I just wish that the final itself would have been a complete final, so to speak, where Ibushi doesn't get hurt. We see the finish. Okada goes over in this, you know, ultimately strong fashion where he only loses to Tama Tonga, and then you can kind of move on from there. Any other last thoughts on the G1 tournament in general?
The return of Katsuyori Shibata.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's the other thing I forgot about talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was like busy, you know, because, you know, there's just so much wrestling. And so I'm like skipping through. I didn't want to watch like all the tag matches of the final night before the podcast because I wasn't going to have time. So I'm skipping through. And after like the clean and sanitation stuff, I turn it on expecting, you know, the main event. And then Zack Saber's music hits. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like he's not scheduled to be on the show. I was like, I'll watch his promo.
Came out in all white. I was like, okay, I see you, clean ass Zack Saber Jr.
Yeah. And he comes out, and then Katsuyori Shibata's music hits. And I mean, just absolutely so cool. I mean, since the podcast started, we have not got to talk about Shibata matches because he got hurt in 2017. He suffered that subdural hematoma in a classic match with Okada. He's kind of one of those guys that would do the sick headbutts that we talk about with Ishii and Shingo, how we don't like them. And he's like the reason we don't like them because they can put people on the shelf, like huge talents like him. But he comes out to do a 5-minute exhibition match with Zack Saber. Doesn't take any bumps. They just chain wrestle for 5 minutes, and it was awesome. And they wrestled to a draw. So.
Oh my God! Okay, so for me on the other side, because I can say that I've seen maybe a couple of Shibata matches, so I'm not that familiar with him. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing Chris Charlton going ape shit, and Kevin Kelly's like, you know, what the fuck is going on? And Shibata comes out, and I'm like, oh, okay, now we've got something interesting going on. And like Two Beer said, it wasn't anything, you know, quote unquote planned. This is a 5-minute exhibition match, and Shibata just hangs with Zack Saber Jr. for this 5 minutes up into the point where they ring the bell and you know, they're separate or whatever. And Zack Saber Jr. is like, you know, we can go another 5 minutes. And that's where I think the interesting part of this whole thing is where Zack Saber Jr. finally leaves. Shibata grabs the mic and ultimately says that he's going to have a legitimate match one day coming up in the near future. So I'll ask this as a 2-part question because you're more familiar with Shibata than I am. Number 1, should this happen? Number 2, if so, who should be the opponent?
Man, I tell you what, he is a great opponent. Zach is a great opponent for him because of the style. And I think this is kind of a situation like a Daniel Bryan returning, right? Where sometimes these injuries can heal. And I actually looked it up, like, because I was like, what is a subdural hematoma? You know, I'm like Googling. And so basically it's whenever blood comes out of the blood vessels. So he essentially had blood in between, his blood vessels in his brain. So like, you know, bleeding of the brain.
Right.
Not good. Right. But apparently those things can apparently heal over time, and that blood can be reabsorbed. So maybe that's something that happened over the last 4 years. But I don't think that New Japan would clear him to do anything outside of an exhibition like this, because the stuff that he was doing with Zach, that's stuff that he does with the LA Dojo guys. Right. You know that he's not stretching them like Stu Hart in the dungeon, but right. You know that he's like wrestling with those dudes at the LA Dojo. That's why he's there.
It felt safe watching it, if that made sense.
Absolutely, and he's the perfect opponent. Don't throw him in there with Ishii or
right.
Shingo. Even though that would be amazing.
I was about to say, we haven't leveled up to that point just yet.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, if he's healthy, I'm all for it because, the New Japan was still much more of a niche product because really the big genesis of New Japan World taking off in America was Chris Jericho. You can pretty much thank Chris Jericho for getting the majority of American wrestlers who subscribe to New Japan World into that ecosystem because he's such a big star.
Alpha versus Omega was a big deal. It was one of the things that we talked about on the pod, and when it happened, it was a big fucking deal. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that I wouldn't agree with you on that. It was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, so he was not around for that, but yeah, and since we do subscribe, there are banger matches of his, back there in that archive, and that's one thing. There's so much great wrestling. I would love, for us to do some dives, sometimes when it's so hard, everybody's so busy and stuff to catch up. It's just it's something that you kind of throw on. It's a Tuesday night or a Saturday night. You just smoke half a joint, and you're just like, I'm gonna look up something fucking weird. Like I'm gonna watch some like Shinsuke shit in New Japan.
Dude, that's the one I always wanted to do, and I want to see what he was in New Japan versus what he is now in WWE. You know what I'm saying? Because I know they're different. I know they are. I just need to see it for myself.
It's kind of the difference of Rocky Maivia and The Rock.
on that level, because you ain't lying on that. Let's get to that 2 count. You said Rocky Maivia. 2 beer. Let's talk AEW. Get that 2 count.
All right, 2 counts. So we start off with Friday Night Rampage. We can get the ratings talk out of the way because a lot of people might be bored to death of this because it has been a story for almost a week now.
Because of the moves, the chess moves that both sides made. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we didn't get the actual numbers until Monday. So it's funny because Saturday night, WWE leaks those fast nationals because they knew and everybody knew they were going to win in overall viewers, and so they leak because they want the first news to be that they had a big win,
right?
And that just wasn't the case. Like after the actual numbers come out, when it comes to the head-to-head half hour that they added on specifically to go head-to-head with Rampage, and they put up Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns,
which is crazy.
Yeah, does not get bigger than that for them. They loaded up their own show. Tony Khan,
great angle
last week.
The Brock and Roman angle is a great angle because basically it adds fuel to the fire of whose side is Paul Heyman on. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but go ahead.
Which was a great story, and and they loaded up the show. They did all the things. They made it commercial free. I mean, they did everything they could. They had guns blazing, and yes, they wanted total viewers, which they were going to do because they have a larger overall audience. They have a 20-something, 30-something year head start on AEW. That's not a surprise. But when you look at the key demos, they don't matter to us. They don't matter to our listeners, but they matter to TV people. And what matters to TV people matters to us because that's how they decide what they're going to do with their money and whether they're going to give the money to the wrestling that we like or the shows that we like. And when it comes to key demos, they did not win. In fact, they had Ruby Soho versus the Bunny beating. Yeah, the Bunny. They got beat by the Bunny. Brock and Roman got beat by the Bunny.
Yeah, that's crazy talk. I saw that shit on Twitter. I was just like, oh, these motherfuckers are going to go ape. These motherfuckers being AEW fans are going to go ape shit over this shit. So I guess this is my question because I'm I'm fairly naive about the ratings war, and I see a lot of people put stock into the overall viewership. But you're saying that the demo rating, the demo number, is the more important number.
It's a more important number to TV executives because that is how they determine the advertising. WWE is always going to win with the 50-plus audience because they grew up with WWE. They're creatures of habit. They turn on Monday Night Raw. They turn on their Friday Night SmackDown. That's
Guilty
what
as charged.
they know.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, exactly. It's habitual. It's just something that you do. Whereas AEW is trying to garner new viewership. And what's also interesting, there was not like people flipping back and forth like the Monday Night Wars. So a lot of people want to liken it to the Monday Night Wars, but it ain't that because this is two separate audiences for the most part. There are people like hardcores that watch both or at least follow both like us.
Right.
But there were not people flipping back and forth between these segments. Like this was a general audience versus another general audience. So, but yeah, it matters more to TV executives because the 18 to 49 demo are the ones that are more likely to spend money on the advertising that they put into those shows. So that's where it all comes down to. We're in a capitalist system, you know.
No,
I don't like it any more than anybody else.
No, like I said,
that's what it is.
I'll be honest. Like I said, I don't necessarily pay that close attention to the ratings or who has overall viewership or who won the demo for the week. It's a running argument between the AEW and WWE fans is which is more important. And I was curious to see your thoughts on that, but I can see both sides of it.
And also something else too, that, you know, just for educational kind of purposes, like when we see Raw, right? Raw had the all-time low on Monday, you know, which is the all-time low.
Whoa.
You know, like whatever.
Of last Monday?
Yeah, it was the all-time low.
Damn.
Like, all time.
The go-home show to Crown Jewel was an all-time low?
Yep. And I mean, there was Monday Night Football, but it's not like, I don't know the game. But
it was Buffalo versus Tennessee. I mean, you know, it was a decent game. It turned out to be a really good game, but on paper, it's not like, oh, let me watch this before I watch it Monday Night Raw. You know, if you're in Buffalo, if you're in Tennessee, yeah, you're going to probably watch it. If you got fancy guys on it, you're probably going to watch it, but that's not going to be enough to where it should move the needle that hard to where now WWE Raw has a low Nielsen rating score.
Yeah, and it's not anything new. I mean, they've had Monday Night Football, I mean, since Raw started, so it's not like a new competition. So,
exactly.
You know, it's an all-time low, so it was an all-time low. But as far as, like, that goes, like, if you look at overall viewership, you know, you see, like, Raw, you know, like 1.8 million, like, whatever. Those are for people that have watched a certain amount of time. Really, the number is much larger as far as, like, overall viewers of people that tuned in for even just a little while. Like, you know, the numbers are often more like 3 million, 4 million people that are tuning in for just a little bit, but they don't get counted because they didn't watch for long enough.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
It's not like there's only 1.8 million WWE fans. There's more, but they ain't watching the whole show.
Right. Okay. Now that's why you get paid the big bucks. All right, let's talk about AEW Rampage. We'll talk about the buy-in and the physical Rampage itself. It opened with Ty Conte versus Santana Garrett.
Oh,
go ahead.
This is hilarious. Real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. But,
no, go ahead.
This right here is the story. So this is Tony Khan being just the super nerd that I love him to be. I am not a personal fan of billionaires, but Tony Khan is up there for me as far as favorite billionaires just because of little nerdy shit like this. So I actually took a screenshot of this because it was so interesting to me because I just nerd out over this shit.
Okay, go ahead.
Bear with me while I find it.
No, I'll say, do you think?
He booked Tay Conti versus Santana Garrett head-to-head with WWE SmackDown because, it's likely, he didn't say this, but it's incredibly likely. So the first time that NXT during the Wednesday Night Wars ever beat AEW, the very first time that they ever beat them in a quarter was Tay Conti versus Santana Garrett when they were in NXT.
That
November
motherfucker ain't
6th,
shit.
2019. Dude, isn't this hilarious? Like, he knows. Like, there's no reason that these two were on this show for any other reason than specifically that. So it was 813,000 viewers to AEW's 809,000 viewers. It was a private party versus the Dark Order match.
Right.
And so they beat him by 4,000 viewers. He has a long memory. Tony Khan does not forget. He's like a fucking elephant.
Jesus
He booked
Christ.
this match, and, you know, it was fine.
Yeah.
I watched the match. It was rough, you know, like Santana Garrett, you know, still like pretty green. Kate Conti, you know, has improved leaps and bounds. I mean, I've talked about her being the most improved wrestler of the year before, but you know, like there were spots where they were talking a lot, you know, really working through it, and even a novice like me can see, you know, this wasn't like a super pro match.
No, by no
but I
means.
thought that little tidbit of trivia was hilarious.
No, dude, honestly, if you would have never said that, I would have never known. That's goddamn comedy. Tony Khan, you troll ass motherfucker. America Top Team and Inner Circle had a brief little, I guess, promo battle, for lack of a better term, which ultimately sets up their Dynamite match. We'll talk about that in a second. Lee Moriarty versus Bobby Fish was a very interesting match. What did you think about Moriarty versus Bobby Fish?
Solid. I mean, Bobby Fish looked great, and it's fun to see him in a singles aspect because I had never seen it. I mean, like I watched some stuff with Red Dragon, you know,
Right.
in New Japan. And then, of course, with Undisputed Era, they've always been a top act. But, you know, it's not like you see Bobby Fish out there. Same thing with Kyle O'Reilly. Until Bobby Fish was getting hurt and Adam Cole was doing his own thing, we didn't really see him in single stuff either. So it's cool to see Bobby Fish getting his time to shine.
No, I agree with that too. I thought Bobby Fish looked really good. He looked healthy, which is the most important thing. He made Lee Moriarty look real good, and I think ultimately that's the biggest takeaway from it for me is that Bobby Fish ends up going over, but he got Lee Moriarty over in the same aspect. So Bobby Fish, for me, it might have felt like a weird signing, but I think this goes to the sense of you need Bobby Fish to get the younger crop of guys over at some point. Getting him a dub right here ain't the worst thing in the world, especially with Lee Moriarty. I think he should go over, but Lee Moriarty obviously has a really high ceiling moving forward.
Yeah, he can go over eventually. You got to build up Bobby Fish because he's not like a known act. Like the Vincels and the Cynics will say, "Oh, WWE guy goes over,"
right?
You know, the new AEW talent. But really, you get that guy over so that eventually the loss that he takes means more.
Right.
So
no, I agree totally.
Totally.
No, I totally agree with that. Bryan Danielson had a vignette that led into the Bryan Danielson Minoru Suzuki main event for the buy-in portion of Rampage.
Oh my God, dude, this thing delivered. I tell you what, it was like old school Domino's. That shit delivered in 30 minutes or less.
I mean, to tell you, these motherfuckers was going at it. God bless Daniel Bryan. Said he was not backing down for any sort of stretch of imagination. He ends up going over with the running knee, which I think is a little telling because I think the story, at least the way I'm taking it, is that he's winning matches in different ways. Submission here, running knee here. This match itself versus Minoru Suzuki, I thought was really good. It made Minoru Suzuki look like the credible threat he is, in my opinion. You know, that match against Jon Moxley the very first time, I will call that that was a wash. You know, that was not what Minoru Suzuki is. This match is more so of what Minoru Suzuki is. When I saw him down at Broadway Athletic Club a couple weeks ago versus Davey Richards, that was a Minoru Suzuki match. I thought this Joker delivered. It gave me everything I wanted and then some. I want Daniel Bryan over in the G1, not now, but 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. And Suzuki's the hottest thing on the indies. I'm so jealous. Like all these like Midwest indie shows, all my friends, I move out to the Pacific Northwest, all my friends are going to Suzuki shows. Like I'm just glad that I got to see Naito a couple years ago.
Yeah, no shit. I was going to say, starting to check off the New Japan boxes up in this motherfucker. So now let's jump into the main Rampage show that started with CM Punk versus Matt Seidel. I did not know that Matt Seidel and CM Punk had wrestled in ROH leading up to this match. Nice little tidbit of information. Nice little production from AEW to kind of drop this nugget into the bucket, so to speak. Matt Seidel ends up going down to CM Punk in a pretty decent match, nothing crazy. What'd you think about Punk versus Matt Seidel?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of unfortunately kind of Matt Seidel's role in AEW. Like, he's an excellent talent. I don't think he's a guy that's going to hold a mid card belt or anything, but he's a guy that's always going to go out there and give you like a great match. Like, he's the quintessential good hand, right?
Yeah.
I think he has potential to be more than that. I'm not like dissing him at all. Like, it's just kind of a product of the stacked roster that they have right now. You know, if they hadn't created all these stars, Matt Seidel would be one of those guys that you would lean on, because he's going to go out there and be dynamic, especially if you're doing like touring house shows and stuff. Like, he's going to be a star. He's going to be a hit every time. And pairing him with guys like Dante Martin but yeah, I didn't know about the ROH stuff. It makes sense because, like Matt Seidel said, he's like, I was a Midwest indie wrestler. Like,
right.
Yeah, he's from St. Louis. Like I said before, like, I got friends that like are like close personal friends with him. And
went to Mizzou. I know Bill somewhere screaming that shit.
Yeah, exactly. So like, maybe I should lean on those guys, get them on the pod.
Yeah, no shit. I was going to say, use your fucking influence. Dark Order had a backstage promo, I guess vignette, better choice of words. Apparently Dark Order is back in line again. I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case. We'll see what happens there. Ruby Riott versus the Bunny. We kind of touched on this a little bit. This is the start of where Supersized SmackDown kind of takes over. So you have the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns segment, and then I think before that you had the women's match, Sasha versus Becky Lynch, which actually was a really good match. What did you think about Ruby Riott versus the Bunny? Because obviously this match took possible eyes away from SmackDown. I thought it was okay, not something that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, nothing to write home about. Like, the whole idea is to get Ruby Soho over, because like she is a star at AEW. Like, she came in a star, and which is telling because she did not leave WWE a star.
No,
she might have been a fan favorite. Like, we liked her. We especially liked her in NXT. She came up, and the Riot Squad was pretty cool. She had her own stable, but they weren't really behind that.
Not at all.
Not really. So, I think her look and her ability in the ring, coupled with that Rancid song, I mean, she's a star.
Yeah,
and
she's definitely made for AEW.
It is telling though that that this could hang on cable television with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. I mean, because like you said, it wasn't like it was like some banger match or anything. It was just a match. Yeah,
I was going to say it was a scenario where the finish is Ruby Riott wins, and then Penelope Ford comes down, gets the brass knuckles in hand, and puts Ruby Riott to sleep after the match. So it's not. It wasn't like it was a 5-star match. It wasn't like it was an angle we hadn't seen before. It's really interesting to think how this match outdraws or does better than Roman versus Brock. Like I said, I watched both segments. I watched one and then I watched the other. To me, this is not even a question which is the better segment. I mean, I'm invested in Roman and Brock like, oh shit, Roman Reigns getting ready to choke Paul Heyman right now. What the fuck you getting ready to do? It's just weird how the fandom is so strong that a Bunny versus Ruby or Soho match does better than Roman Reigns versus Brock. It blows my mind.
Oh, 100%.
All right. Main event time. If I'm not mistaken, this was Jake Hager and Sammy Guevara versus Junior Dos Santos. And I can't think of who his partner was. I wrote down America Top Team, and I didn't write down the name of the guys. Shit, who was Junior Dos Santos' fucking partner that night?
I can't remember because it was he was kind of the star.
Yeah. Fuck. Honestly, I can't remember. I'm not even gonna lie.
It was like the guy. He's always standing there, but he doesn't really say anything or do anything. Like Paige Van Zandt and of course Jorge Masvidal has huge star presence.
Yeah,
but he was in the corner. But
no, I think who was this a 6-man tag? I think was it Men of the Year Junior Dos Santos. Yeah, that sounds right. Either way, doesn't matter. Okay, doesn't matter. If I'm not mistaken, the American Top Team wins this match once again. I'm not sure where this is going. I mean, we're getting guys involved. Dan Lambert, I think, is doing a pretty good job, stoking the fire. But I guess here's my question with this. What's the end game with this feud with the Inner Circle versus American Top Team?
I mean, it makes for good TV. The whole idea of Dan Lambert being Jim Cornette is like every week. It's just like the best segment. But I think the end game is to get more mainstream appeal. Like we get more. You get these stars like Jorge Masvidal, who has tons of charisma. Maybe get him involved. Maybe get him doing a singles match. You get more eyes on the product. You get Paige Van Zandt, who is pretty top tier when it comes to bikini pics. She's an okay MMA fighter.
Right.
She's doing bare knuckle boxing for some reason, which is seems like the worst thing you could do with a pretty face. But Jericho we'll talk about on Dynamite was really putting her over by focusing on her. Running her down in the promo. But yeah, I think the whole thing is just more mainstream appeal, maybe getting Dana White to let some of these guys do some professional wrestling because he's not going to want his guys getting hurt. Same
right.
reason like The Rock ain't wrestling, he's got more important shit. He's got to, not saying they're more important, not saying MMA is more important than professional wrestling, but to the MMA guys, it is. They can't get some injury going through a table and then lose, not be able to take their payday on their title fight.
No,
they got other goals.
I think we can agree that the paycheck from professional wrestling would be more than what they would make in MMA, and I think that's probably the reason why you have these guys, whether they're current or former MMA stars. I think that's why you have these MMA guys and Paige Van Zandt, a woman, kind of just hanging around trying to see what's next. The payday is there, I think. It's just now how do you kind of integrate these MMA stars, this MMA faction into the AEW world?
Oh, yeah. So this was the 6-man tag. It was
thank
Scorpio
God.
Sky, Nathan Page versus Junior Dos Santos. So it wasn't the sorry, I've watched too much wrestling.
Okay, thank God. That makes me feel a lot better.
I thought it was the other dude, and I was like, I don't remember him in this match at all. But it was a 6-man.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the whole thing. Get more eyes on the product. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cain Velasquez show up. He's doing AAA real soon. Yeah. And I could see that being a thing. And his first AAA match, I didn't watch it, but from all accounts, people loved it. And he was like a superstar. He came in with a mask. He's like really into luchador shit. And then WWE signed him, and they jobbed him out to Brock and fired him after he had a knee injury. So, I mean... is what it is.
Oh, crown jewel. God bless it. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's jump to Dynamite. Saturday Night Dynamite, which is a little weird. I still can't. Wednesday night is a weird night for me now. It's just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll watch MLW. What the fuck? Okay, so let's talk about Saturday Night Dynamite. It opens with Malachi Black versus Dante Martin with Leo Rush in the corner. I'm not sure if Leo Rush is going to play the manager role for long. It later comes out that Lio Rush and Dante Martin are going to be a tag team, which kind of boots his brother that apparently might still be on the injured reserve list, or if he's coming back, that might be the angle itself. Neither here nor there. I thought this match was good just in the sense that it once again made Dante Martin look strong, even though he does take the L. And then the kind of, I guess, backstory is where Lio Rush is trying to coach Dante Martin up, and he doesn't take Lio Rush's instructions, and it ultimately leads into the pinfall. Thoughts on the curtain jerker Dante Martin versus Malachi Black match?
This thing ruled, and it's so crazy to see Malachi Black. I mean, everybody cheers him. Like, he's the heel that, like, everybody loves. And
he's a cool ass heel.
With that. Yeah, he's just cool as fuck. And it's fine. Like, you know, we're all about boo the heels over here on BFR, in case you guys don't know. But it's okay. You can cheer Malachi Black as a treat. You can have a little bit.
We'll excuse this one, I guess.
Yeah, but, you know, like, just really letting Dante Martin shine, doing his shit. And I think the coolest part of it is, you know, Black catches him with that, you know, roundhouse, black mass, and, you know, takes a sweet-ass time covering him, which is one of the things that I love about that finisher, is it comes out of nowhere, and it's so incredibly dominant as a finisher that he just takes his time covering his opponent, or he covers him very lackadaisically. But what he did do after this, which is not heelish, but is very cool, is he gives Dante Martin the nod.
Yeah.
He's like, you took me to my limit, kid. Good work. He's like, you'll be there someday. You know,
just not today.
No words. Doesn't have to talk. That's like the beauty of Aleister Black. Malachi Black. You know,
yeah, I was like, get your gimmicks right.
Yeah, his shit was like Velveteen Dream whenever the whole say my name thing, whenever he did the whole, like, live in infamy.
I was about to say, leave Velveteen alone, man. That motherfucker's trying to come out of, you know, whatever fucking dark dungeon he dug himself into, for fucking Christ's sake. That motherfucker. God, what a waste of talent. Let's move on to the Super Elite jumps the Jurassic Express backstage, one of many backstage brawls. What's happening with the Super Elite? Are we getting trios titles? Is this leading up to something moving towards Full Gear? What's the deal?
I feel like we probably will. Last year on the Jericho Cruise, they teased trios titles on the next Jericho Cruise, and everybody's boarding the Jericho Cruise right now. Not saying it's going to come out now, but obviously it's something that they're talking about. And we've talked about it before. It would be fine. I know CM Punk, he came out on a media call. I don't know who he was with, like what the interview was, but he was kind of talking shit on too many titles. Saying the TBS title might have been a step too far. He's like, do we have the depth in our women's division for a secondary title? He's like, honestly, like, I would have had women's tag titles before I had a secondary singles title, which I kind of agree with. But he did say something about a trios title. He's like, yeah, we have great trios. He's like, yeah, you can throw me with Darby Allin and Sting, which was intriguing that he said that.
Very.
But there is a lot there, and yes, if you get too many titles, it is a problem. We see that in other promotions, but at the same time, until it, you know, becomes a problem, I'm not gonna shit on it, because there is potential there. But yeah, possibly. I mean, Super Elite, Jurassic Express, you know, the what was the
Hardy Family Order?
Yeah, you got Hardy Family. You got the Dark Order. You've got Pac and the Lucha Brothers. What is it? Death Triangle. Yeah, there is a whole lot, and there's 5 more that I didn't even say.
Best friends and filling the probably Will Uter whenever what's his face comes back. See, he ain't dead, motherfucker. He got squashed pretty well, though, but he ain't dead. We had another Inner Circle versus American Top Team promo. We kind of touched on that a little bit. Then the next match, which was kind of interesting coming in, you had the Lucha Brothers defending the AAA Tag Team titles versus the Super Frogs, who were brought in by Andrade and Kayfabe to challenge the Lucha Brothers for the AAA Tag Team titles. It comes out fairly quickly in the broadcast. I can't remember who said it was FTR, but somebody was like, oh, this is FTR. They look like FTR, whatever the case may be. And fairly quickly, they are unmasked, and FTR is exposed as the opponents for the Lucha Brothers, who ultimately end up beating the Lucha Brothers with a little fuckery from Tully Blanchard to win the AAA titles. I'm okay with this, I guess. I'm not sure why we're going this route. I
think it does a couple things. I think it helps AAA because you have the heel gringos coming into the promotion as the champions.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, good point.
Lucha Brothers are faces down there. So it kind of has that dynamic going in. And you also have Lucha Brothers taking their first loss of the year. So it sets up a potential match for the AEW tag titles. And I did love that the announcers were not fooled. They did not. At all. They did not make us feel stupid, right, or there's a better way of saying it. They did not insult our intelligence. Right?
Yeah, good. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they were just like, that's FTR.
Right.
Look at the body.
Sound. Yeah. So I can't remember who said it, but that was when they said, I was like, motherfucker, this is FTR. God damn it. But it was a shitty kind of disguise, but the match still ended up turning out being good. Surprised that FTR won the AAA titles, but I like the explanation you gave. Gringos going into Mexico as champions, it usually is automatic heat. You had
shout out to Michael Wallace Fields for pointing out that the outfits were very similar to the rapper gimmick that Vince was going to give the Revival. So,
no, big shout out to Michael Wallace Fields. I didn't even trip off of that until he put it on Twitter. I was like, motherfucker, it does look like it does look like that same stupid gimmick they were trying to saddle him with. Andrade and MJF had a promo backstage where Andrade pays off MJF for the one-time use of FTR. I want to see where that goes here in a little bit. I don't necessarily think it's a one-time thing. Jon Moxley comes out and squashes poor Wheeler Yuta. I'm a Will Yuta guy. I just wrong place, wrong time, I guess, for Will Yuta, where Moxley is getting geared up for the AEW title eliminator tournament. We can talk about that here in a little bit. And then Serena Deeb has a backstage interview where Shida jumps Serena Deeb, I guess, for rubbing it in for losing, for beating Shida in her possible 50th win match. You could talk about any of the three things I just talked about: Andrade, MJF, Moxley squashing Wheeler Yuta, or Serena Deeb and Shida getting it on backstage.
Yeah, the Moxley thing, that's just like fan service, like for the people in attendance. It's just, get some Jon Moxley some a win, getting some momentum, and it's just super fun to watch him be so mean. And he was essentially like Suzuki with a young boy.
Pretty much.
That was his role. It was like Suzuki going up against a young lion, and he just showed him no remorse. Whenever it was like 10 seconds in and he just had him on the ropes, clobbered him with forearms, and he does that release vertical suplex that he does, and it's just over in less than 2 minutes.
Don't take this ass kicking personally.
Yeah, and I think it also led up, you saw Orange kind of mad that he treated his boy so bad, the most kind of expression you're going to get from
Orange Cassidy, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some concern and some maybe some anger, to do
up like that. Yeah, I think that's going to be a possible I guess that's a semifinal match or whatever the case may be. I forgot to write down the brackets or whatever, but I agree with you. Somewhere in this tournament, if it's not the first match, I don't think it is. I think 10 wrestles Jon Moxley in the first round, and then after that, Moxley should win that, and that's when I think him and Orange Cassidy meet. That was a good way to kind of tease that possible meeting. Dark Order versus the Young Bucks and Adam Cole. I don't even know what the fuck to call them. I guess this is the Super Click at this point. Shit, who's the Super Elite? Who's the Super Click? I don't even know. It's T-shirts, and they're selling them like hotcakes, so ultimately it doesn't even matter who it is.
I think Adam Cole and the Young Bucks are the Super Click, and the group at large is the Super Elite.
That's what I thought. Okay, see, at least I can tell these motherfuckers apart. They had a match against Dark Order, kind of once again piggybacking about what I've said about trios titles. I think it might be that time, especially when you have the Super Click beating the Dark Order. Entertaining match. I think the biggest fun part about the match is where you had the Adam Cole spot where he had one of the Dark Order in the camel clutch, for lack of a better term, Steiner recliner, or whatever you want to call it. And then instead of the Bucks giving him the kiss on the cheek, it was Silver Reynolds giving him the kiss on the cheek. I guess then at that point it's Evil Uno being the odd person out. Either way, I thought it was an entertaining match. The Super Quick does go over. Once again, where's this going? I mean, I guess that's ultimately I'm waiting for the next program, and it feels like we're in a holding pattern to figure out what's next leading into Full Gear. What did you think about the match?
Oh, yeah, super fun. And, yeah, I actually didn't even analyze it that way. I just kind of enjoyed the TV match. It's just like, oh, yeah, we're just going to go out there and have a 4-star TV match because we're the Young Bucks and we're the best tag team that ever did it. And now we got our friend Adam Cole.
You just had to throw that shit in there, didn't you?
Yeah, that was for Bill.
Yeah, right. For me, too, because I'm going to have to fuck with you about it.
But, yeah, just super fun match and lots of fun spots. And they just go out night after night and just do the goddamn thing, man. And, I feel like it's kind of like Jon Moxley, he lost that title on fuckery and he had some personal shit in his personal life. So, he had a baby and he wrote a book. And so, kind of keeping him out of the title picture and keeping him strong. And I think that's kind of the same thing with the Young Bucks. They're not going to be wrestling for the tag titles at the Full Gear,
right.
Based on the card that we saw. So
right.
We're kind of keeping them relevant. You want to put the Young Bucks on TV if you're wanting to draw new fans, like they're, some of the most dynamic people that you can do, and putting them with Adam Cole makes it so that you get them all on TV at the same time.
No, and, I totally agree. I have no problem with this at all. I was going to say the Super Quick. I can watch that shit all day. Shit, if I can get PWG fucking CDs or whatever the case, or DVDs, I would watch that shit in a heartbeat. The Nightmare Family had a interesting vignette. Cody's getting bitch slapped by the ladies of the Nightmare Family. Yeah, I'll say basically everybody is, just making them look like a bitch. Brock Anderson is throwing him around in training. Lee Johnson is throwing him around in training, trying to get him hyped up for an ultimate, I shouldn't say ultimate, but a third match with Malachi Black. Is this a thing to make Cody flip heel, or is this something that is making the Nightmare Family turn on Cody? I'm just not sure where this is. To me, this is now more about Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black. I think no matter what happens with this Cody Rhodes angle, Malachi Black wins, so it just angers Arn Anderson even more to really fuck with Cody. What do you think is going to happen with the Nightmare Family in general?
That's funny because I was actually thinking the opposite. I was thinking that because Cody is still kind of staunch, even though the fans have been booing him and it's kind of a complicated storyline, he's like staunchly positioning himself as a baby face. I thought that eventually he's going to have to overcome this Malachi Black, and this is kind of a complicated story in which he does so. And I don't think Malachi Black losing to Cody Rhodes
And it ain't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, but I can see how some folks would not like it.
For sure.
Because Malachi is so cool and Cody Rhodes is...
He's super over. I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. I mean, like it or not.
Yeah, so, you know, it does not make for... I don't know. It's taking up television time. I don't hate the angle. I had mixed feelings about it because it kind of took me back whenever like he just walks up and Red Velvet just smacks him in the fucking face.
I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
I'm like, you just got hired here. Like, this is essentially your boss. Like,
okay. Tyler King paintbrushing this motherfucker. I'm like, damn. Okay, Cody, what the fuck, motherfucker? You gonna say something? Shit.
But I did like the history angle of like Arn, you know, showing him like Dusty beating the shit out of him and saying like, I didn't know it at the time. He's like, but I deserved this, and I never would have thought. But he's like, but I had this coming. And Malachi Black has this coming. And it's a cool story, and it's a complicated story, and I'm interested. You know, I'll do the thing. You know, the Bill Hayes. Let's just see how it all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Because I want to see how this ultimately plays out. I want to see if Cody goes to the dark side, because ultimately that feels like that's how you have to beat Malachi Black. And I think that's what Arn is trying to, you know, drill in his head. You know, when your dad did this to me, I was such a bad person. This is the lengths he had to go to, you know, exact his, for lack of a better word, retribution on Arn Anderson. I think that's kind of where we're going with this. So, I mean,
I think it's that without him fully turning heel. Because if he went heel and he didn't side with the Super Elite, it wouldn't make any sense, right? Because like they have past history
or whatever.
Yeah, so I feel like him maybe getting to the darker side of his personality, and I like that story. I think you hit it right on the head. Like, he's gonna have to dig deep, and Arn's just trying to piss him off because he's off doing his own thing. He's doing, you know, a successful Road to the Top. Like, he just tweeted about it today. Road to the Top's doing good.
Really?
You know, so, I mean, ratings-wise, it was like number one non-scripted show in a time slot.
Huh.
So, like, he's happy with it. I'm sure TNT's happy with it. And, again, reaching the broader audience. They don't have a huge women's audience, so, I mean, whenever WWE
a pregnant woman,
that women's audience.
I'll say a pregnant woman on TV is always a good way to, you know, garner sympathy from other women. Yeah, look at how Cody fucking with that woman. Man, I can't believe Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, and WWE got that women's audience through Total Divas, Total Bellas.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes good sense. It really does. I have not seen a single episode. The fact that you're saying that it's number one in this time slot is just saying that to me is what it says to me is that they put it in a spot where the AEW crowd can just stay right here. You ain't even got to move the channel. You know, you can watch, you know, what happened back in the day.
And they're putting promos at the first commercial break. So, like, I've actually watched the first episode in its entirety because the first episode is after Sammy Guevara won the title.
Right.
And they put his promo at the first commercial break. But what's really cool about the show is it shows a ton of backstage stuff with AEW. It's not just Cody and Brandy, like in their mansion or whatever. It shows a ton of, like, production stuff. And one of the cool things about it, I've watched a couple of them, was, like, Cody got a lot of heat after who was the Anthony Ogogo, the boxer thing?
Yep.
And that segment, like, bombed, and, like, you could see like, the cameras were in there. Like, Tony Khan was not happy with that segment. Like, you know, I've never seen him, like, you know, pissed off. He's just like, this fucking sucks. And it's...
I kind of remember that, where I was thinking that this was not a good segment. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so that part was really cool, and you see... You know, they say non-scripted, but it's about as non-scripted as fucking professional wrestling is.
Right.
You know? So they're perfect for it. But, you know, they have little cameos and stuff. And, like, Randy walks up to John Moxley. She's super pregnant. And she's like, how you doing, John? John's like, I'm fucking hungover.
Nice. God love me some John Moxley. That's amazing fucking shit. MJF had a good promo. I don't want to really touch on that too much. Kind of possibly sets up Darby Allin. Sting comes out, chases off MJF throws Wardlow underneath the bus. That's the main thing, the nugget to take away from that. Once again, Wardlow getting thrown underneath the bus. At some point when his babyface run starts, it will start against MJF and he'll get his ass over. Penelope Ford versus Kiera Hogan. It was okay. Nothing great. The bad part about it is it's the one match, at least in my opinion. The bad part about it is the one match in the same spot. AEW always has its women match. Thought that you want to delve in on Kiera Hogan versus Penelope Ford at all?
Nah, it was fine.
Didn't think so, because I want to really talk about the Adam Hangman Page segment. I'm not saying that this is going to be promo of the year, but this was easily Hangman Page's best fucking promo. It came from the heart. It felt real. It felt legit. The fact that he's talking about there's going to be tears in one way or the other after Full Gear is really what the takeaway for me was from the Adam Page promo on Saturday night. What'd you think about it?
Oh yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was essentially the quintessential promo for the longest story in professional wrestling that I've ever witnessed. We had Adam Page calling his shot 3 years ago, saying, I'm going to be the first AEW champion. And he didn't make it. And then he goes on to have this amazing tag title reign and maybe the best tag match ever in American history with his tag partner. And then they split, and now he's facing said tag partner in a title match that he earned after many trials and tribulations and personal storylines, and it's just super cool. I can't wait.
So obviously this match is set. Do they pull the trigger now on Page becoming the champion?
I think so. This is what it looks like to me, but I'm not 100%, but I think so.
I tend to agree. I think this is one of those times where AEW knows what the fan base wants, and I think they're going to pull the trigger on it. It's quiet as it's kept. It's almost been a year since Kenny Omega has won the AEW championship. He won it in December of 2020. When Full Gear comes around, obviously that'll be November of this year. So, I mean, quiet as it's kept, he's held the title for almost a calendar year. At that point, I'm good with even if it's Roman Reigns, I think, is probably the only exception at this point where I want that reign to go a year plus. If Okada wins the title, I would be okay with a year-long Okada run. For me, at this point, I think Kenny Omega, especially with Bryan Danielson coming in, Adam Cole, baby, long-term, CM Punk somewhere in the middle. I think there's enough new talent coming in that you can keep Kenny Omega busy the same way you kept John Moxley busy. What do you think?
Yeah, because it wasn't too long ago. Like, you remember all these people being like, why doesn't Kenny have the belt?
Right.
Kenny's the best wrestler in this company. Why doesn't Kenny have the belt?
True.
Well, Kenny had the belt for almost a year now, and it is time to transition. As long as you can still have those big money matches and people are willing to tune in to see Adam Page wrestle other people, that's great. And I think that people are. And like you said, it's not like it's going to go back onto Omega. I think Omega, just like Jericho, has done his service. He's put in his time, and we're still going to have the best bout machine. He's still going to exist.
Right.
But this gives ample opportunity for fresh matchups, fresh faces, and a babyface champion, which, if you think about it, it's cool to have champions in chase mode or babyfaces in chase mode. We talk about that. But at the same time, if you have a babyface champion that's over, there's no better thing.
Agreed.
Fucking Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino. Yeah. You think they fucking needed a heel so that they could chase the title? No, because they were the top.
Right.
And I think Adam Page can be that guy. Like, he's got it, man. Like, and like you said, maybe not promo of the year, but we might talk about it because, I mean, he said shit a whole bunch.
It's an honorable mention just in the sense that promo, when he was talking, I was just like, oh shit, okay, no, I'm feeling you, dog. I was literally getting into, because he literally talked about the whole gamut, like you said, coming in, and he called his shot 3 years ago, and that shit didn't work. You know, he goes with
it's Kenny. The longest storyline I've ever seen,
and now,
and actually, and what's crazy, it's only part of the longest storyline, because if you actually talk about the longest storyline is the reformulation of the Elite as baby faces. When that happens in like 2 years, that will be like a 5-year storyline. I ain't never seen that before. It's like having my dick sucked from the back. I ain't never had it before.
There's the dick joke we've been waiting for. Damn, it took you long enough. I'll play the wait and see card on the Elite becoming baby faces. It is going to have to take the Pinnacle just, you know, shooting cats, dogs, and grandmas to be that heel group, or you're bringing in another heel group. Otherwise, for me, the Elite is that heel group. They're the top heel group, and I see them being that way for a long, long time. That's just me. Bobby.
I'm talking like 2024. They all come together as baby faces.
Like I said, even in 2024, I need to see that shit happen. I mean, Adam Cole, baby, had to like do some real janky ass shit to like the Young Bucks mom and dad, and, you know, maybe the family dog or some shit. Like I said, I will believe it when I actually see it. Right now, the Super Elite, the Super Click, these jokers, I'm gonna call them Bullet Club just to make it real simple. Bullet Club right now, these jokers run AEW. They are the top heel faction, and right now everything for me kind of revolves around them. I just can't see them being baby faces anytime soon, even in 2024. That feels like that's still too soon. I'm just saying. Bobby Fish versus Bryan Danielson was the main event on Friday or Saturday Night Dynamite. And once again, another good match. More so chain wrestling than anything else. Bryan Danielson obviously goes over. Quick thoughts on
heel hook.
Heel hook.
I love the finish. That's the best thing. Like you touched on it. He's winning in different ways. Like, you know, there's kind of two methods of psychology when it comes to finishing matches, and it's like you either have your finisher that people are waiting for, which is really kind of the WWE method. Not that it's the only way, but you really don't expect a match to end until somebody hits the finisher, or like a schoolboy. You see that a lot too. Or that's the WWE's like,
move, shit.
Yeah, or there's the method of where it's a real fight, and you know, like Kota Ibushi, you know, we saw like anything can end a fight, and Bill did text us, not to go back to that, but Bill did text us, and he's like, it's amazing that more of that shit doesn't happen in reality, because these guys are putting their bodies out there. So it is cool to add that reality of like, oh shit, Bryan Danielson just got a heel hook and that shit fucking hurts, and I got to tap out or he's gonna break my fucking ankle.
It happened so quick. I was like, damn, what the fuck? Wait a minute, damn. Rewind this shit. Okay, yeah, yeah, that's it. That's, to me, is the takeaway from Bryan Danielson, the last, from Rampage and Dynamite, and just basically him in general. He's winning in totally different ways, so you don't know what to kind of prepare for in future.
Even that flying knee for Suzuki, or on Suzuki, that flying knee came out of nowhere in a match. Like, I did not expect that, because they still had, like, they went on for like 8 more minutes with like vignettes before the show. Like, I expected like more match. Right.
And then that tripped me out. This heel hook, I totally forgot that I knew it was by submission. I just couldn't remember how he did it. I can't remember Bryan Danielson doing a heel hook since he came into AEW. Now all of a sudden he clamps Bobby Fish on this motherfucker, and this a wrap. I was like, okay, shit, go ahead. I like how they're building both CM Punk and Bryan Danielson in kind of different ways. CM Punk is kind of going through the younger crowd or whatever. He's slowly building his way up. Bryan Danielson is kind of, you know, any challenger that wants some can come get some. You know what I'm saying? Both are going to ultimately get to the top 5 of the rankings in their own different way. depending on who the champion is at the time, that's going to be an interesting match. I wouldn't mind seeing Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page. Definitely wouldn't mind seeing Omega if he, God forbid, if he retains over Adam Page. Omega versus Danielson 2 for the title. Yeah, we can go ahead and sign me up for that too. So either way, I think ultimately Bryan Danielson in 2022 is going to be in the main event scene, actually challenging for the title. But thoughts on Fish, Danielson, Bryan Danielson, anything I talked about?
Oh yeah, totally. I do like that they're approaching different paths. Even Adam Cole, they all came at the same time. They're all doing different stuff. Different paths to the same goal, because that Adam Cole, baby, ain't sitting back resting on his laurels. If Kenny Omega ain't got that title,
right.
He's not going after the title now because Kenny Omega's got it. That's the only reason. He's not going to cause rifts, in the clique and go after the title. But as soon as that title leaves, it's almost like kind of heels honor, right? I got to go get this title back for us. So you see Adam Cole versus Adam Page, Battle of the Atoms.
Sign me up. It was kind of like just to jump back to New Japan for a little bit when Kinta and Chase Owens were kind of, struggling over the U.S. title, and Takahashi was down there, no, I'm going first. No, I'm going first. They're struggling back and forth, and ultimately Chase is like, okay, you know what, Kinta, you can get first crack at the U.S. title. Same scenario. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, it's going to get to the point if Kenny Omega loses at Full Gear, Adam Cole is not going to wait. He is going to somehow finagle his way to get a match versus Adam Page, and then that's where the ultimate, I don't want to say the ultimate, a possible rift could happen. And that's why I'm saying I just can't see a face elite group in 2024. This shit's going to happen fairly quickly, and that's why I think ultimately it's going to blow itself up. And plus, Adam Cole's got to get, the elite back from, basically killing them off. I mean, what the fuck? You can't let that shit slide. I mean, that's Sopranos 101 type shit.
Yeah, I could see Omega retaining just to get those matches out of the way, and then Page taking him after that. Have him do Danielson, have him do Punk, and then lose the title to Page. I think I said that last podcast, because then it makes it even more meaningful. The Page wins. Maybe I don't really like fuckery finishes, but
yeah, but I mean, yeah. Obviously, I mean, when you got Kenny Omega, the possibility of fuckery is there. I'll just say this: I don't know if you will be, not you as Two Beer, but you as TK would be able to script a way where Page loses this match in some form or fashion. We'll just go with fuckery because that's what we're talking about. Then Omega would beat in whatever order Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and then Hangman Page comes back to win. I just think this is the time to do it. We've kind of talked about it on the pod. Yes. I mean, we talked about this. It is the perfect time to do it. You make Page the champion. You figure it out from there. And on that lovely note, let's get to that 3 count. Now, the 3 count this week, we're going to talk about Crown Jewel. I'll admit to it. I was kind of excited, intrigued. There's a multitude of words that you can come up with. My feelings coming into Crown Jewel, and then ultimately it turned out to what it always seems to be, is a glorified house show. So once again, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched, go away for about 10 or 15 minutes and then come back. We'll open up the Crown Jewel show with Edge versus Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell. I'll say it. This was the match of the goddamn night. What did you think about the curtain jerker Hell in a Cell match?
This match ruled. I think Lance Storm said it best on Twitter, which was, it was a Hell in a Cell. Nobody got involved. Which is what the Hell in a Cell is created for. They did not get out of the cell,
right,
which is Hell in a Cell is created for. And they just had an absolutely killer match. And we talked about it where, yes, this is a WrestleMania level card, but we don't expect fantastic matches. But Edge and Rollins are not two dudes that are going to go out there and just, give it, mediocre.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. They're professionals, and this was super cool. And I really dug it. It played into their previous matches, with the super kick, the multiple super kicks to the face of Edge, and
with the chain on Seth Rollins' foot. I thought that was a couple cool spots.
I thought
right
that
there.
was the finish.
Yeah, I totally thought that's where the match was going in, the curb stomp on the back of the neck or whatever, and then that would send Seth Rollins off, send them both off the Raw or whatever. But obviously,
and
not.
like Edge's new thing is like doing the cross face with the fucking whatever he can find. Like
this motherfucker put the wrench in Seth Rollins' mouth. I'm like, God damn.
And Seth played it so good, he's got his tongue hanging out like
the spot with the table
man.
or whatever, where who's going through the table. I thought that was really well played. Like I said, I thought this was the match of the night, and I said it on Twitter. I felt bad for whoever was following this match, that you're going to have to somehow, some way, figure out a way to deal with that. I thought they did the best.
I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say it's about what I thought whenever I saw it. Whenever it finished, I was like, that's about as good as a main roster WWE match gets.
Yeah, I was going to say there was no.
I'm not going to give it 5 stars, but it's about as good as a WWE main roster match gets.
It's a solid 4-star match at the very least, and like you said, nobody got out of the cage, nobody got into the cage. The story was basically told in that Joker, and for me, I would think this would be the blow off for this feud.
I would hope so, yeah, because, I mean, I don't want to see it. They're not going to do anything better than this. And I think with, Rollins going to Monday, it's time for him to get involved with Biggie.
That's what I'm kind of thinking to myself. I'll be really interested to see what happens on Monday night, especially after what we talk about later on here in a little bit. Mustafa Ali versus Mansoor. I said it on Twitter. I think Mansoor is probably going to be the only person in WWE history who never loses in his hometown. Well, call me what you want. I mean, it's the guy's honest truth. Mansoor goes over.
Allah's honest truth.
Say that again?
Allah's honest truth.
Yeah, no shit. I can't think of the guy's name that came out and saved Mansoor, who is also from Saudi Arabia. He won the silver medal.
Karate guy.
Okay, yeah. He comes out.
I didn't know him. I had no idea who that was. It was like almost excruciating. It took forever for him to get out there and take off his mask.
Yeah,
and then when he took off his mask, I'm like, I don't know who the fuck this is.
Yeah,
but Ali played it off well. Like Ali acted like he knew who he was, and then he took the bump.
God bless him for it. I was sitting there, and I said on Twitter, I'm like, okay, well, this motherfucker's taking his time coming to the ring. Ali need to be making sure Mansoor ain't getting up. He need to stomp this motherfucker a new, motherfucking asshole walking dry. Make sure you don't know who this motherfucker is. It looked like Shelton Benjamin for 30 seconds. Not saying that all black people look alike, but
I actually thought it was Cedric Alexander because like him and Ali had wrestled at WrestleMania. Like I was thinking Crown Jewel. And I was like, I remember when him and Ali wrestled at WrestleMania on the pre-show, and like they didn't even give a fuck. It was the pre-show. They went out there and they're like,
it was like for the cruiserweight title. It was a really good fucking match. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and I remember them I just remember Ali going down toward he got his head down next to Cedric, and I know that and they were talking, and they were just like, oh son of a bitch, that was so fucking awesome. Like this is the best moment of our fucking lives, and it just filled my heart with warmth. So I thought that it was him, and then I'm like, wait, is it the cat Ernest Miller?
That's amazing. No, all bullshit aside, it kind of looked like him too. Upon retrospect, I can easily see where you see that. I don't have a problem with that. It's like you said, took way too fucking long. The Undertaker could have beat this motherfucker down to the ring by the time he got to the ring, and then he unmasked. It's just kind of like womp 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 womp. God, thank you for kicking Ali's head off, but I mean, ultimately this was.
But at least the crowd loved it, and they was watching it.
They popped.
That was like one thing. And actually, the crowd for this one, I admittedly have not watched all of these crown jewels. I was on my anti-blood money, not giving WWE Network any money shit for a long time. But the crowd was really hot for this, for a lot of these, and it made the show a lot better. And this was like, when you say house show stuff, this was perfect house show stuff. And it's funny because like WWE knows how to do this. It's like, hey, you did it. You had the guy win in his hometown, and then you did a beatdown, but then you had the guy come out and save the guy, and then you had the pop afterwards. Like, they know how to do it. They just fucking don't. It's baffling.
True words ain't been spoken tonight. I mean, that's how you get the hometown hero over, but neither here nor there. You had RK Bro versus AJ and Omos. RK Bro retains the Raw Tag Team Championships. I'll just say this really quick. I'm getting a little sick of AJ Styles looking like the weak link in this tag team. If you're going to protect Omos, that's fine, but you can't just keep having AJ Styles eating pins. Is it going to kill him? No. Is it going to change how people look at him? Probably not. Either you like AJ or you don't. Personally, I think AJ Styles is an amazing talent, and I hate to see him eating pin after pin after pin, whether it means something or not. Thoughts on RK?
No.
He said
I
no.
agree. No, I agree. It's just, it is what it is, and it is what it's going to be. Matt Riddle riding a fucking camel. Like, I saw those dudes holding those camels, and I'm like, you know, Edge comes out, and like, you got like a big superstar reaction, and I'm like texting you guys. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, Edge got this big superstar reaction, and then but meanwhile, I'm like, what's up with these guys holding camels? And like, now we find out like, why. But yeah, like they were just off to the side. But I mean, that was like kind of fun. But yeah, like
Orton's face, I thought was bad. Orton's face. I thought when Riddle came out on the camel was just absolutely priceless. That made the moment.
They're the perfect odd couple
for sure.
I mean, they hit money. Usually WWE does this a lot. But they really hit pay dirt.
Yeah,
with
Rock and Sock Connection, I thought was one of their better odd couple tag teams, especially with becoming tag team champions. I didn't think I would like RK Bro. I didn't want to like RK Bro. I like RK Bro. Call me what you want to. Selena Vega versus Piper Niven. I'm not calling her that other name. I don't give a fuck what you say. And I still and when the beefers come around, I already know what I'm going to talk about as the worst angle or anything you want to call it. It's Eva Marie. Spoiler alert. Yes, I'm probably going to give it to Eva Marie because you can't have a whole podcast running me down and not have me come back at the end when you're wrong about Eva Marie getting Piper Niven over. You don't think I'm coming back? Yeah, that's going to be my fucking, worst angle of the year, but neither here nor there. Selena Vega beats Piper Niven? Really?
This was baffling to me. The code red was like
all Piper Niven.
Like, yeah, I was like, whoa. But I just couldn't believe it. I actually tweeted about this. I was like, I went from watching the fucking G1 to Selena Vega versus Doudrop, and I was like, I'm just fucking spiraling here. Like, I thought I was having a good time because, like, Edge and Seth was, like, really good, and then Ali and Mansoor was, like, very serviceable. Like, they're both good workers, and it was fine. And then this fucking happened, and I'm like, dude, like, nothing against either of them at all.
No, it's just...
They didn't do anything. It was a bunch of 2-minute or less matches for this whole tournament, and this is almost just seems like Selena Vega signed back with the company, and they're like, hey, we're gonna do this Queen of the Ring thing, and we'll just give you that if you just want to like sign back.
Or maybe it just fell into their lap in some form or fashion. I think ultimately this was more about showing the world that women can be somewhat equal in Saudi Arabia, and ultimately this is, you could have had the Queen's Crown final anywhere. They chose to do it in Saudi Arabia, so I'm thinking they did it for a reason. That's why I think ultimately this is why it happened. Now, who wins it doesn't matter. I mean, Naomi won, the Andre the Giant, Battle Royal years ago, and that shit doesn't matter unless, somebody brings that shit up. So, I mean, ultimately, I don't think this makes a difference. It gives Selena a fresh gimmick to run with for a year or so, give or take. But, I mean, neither one of these women right now are any closer to the title than they were walking in the door.
No, not at all. And, yeah, it's like, I mean, there's no reason to even spend time talking about it because it doesn't fucking mean anything. It's not going to mean anything for anybody.
Speaking of not meaning anything for anybody, next up you had Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley in a no-holds-barred match. Yeah, I went there. I'm sorry. You got Goldberg coming down, limping on one leg versus Bobby Lashley, who's just come off one of the better, championship runs that we've seen in quite some time. I would just say in the last 2 or 3 years.
Days.
Yeah, give or take. I think that's
before he even had the title, he was fucking a monster. Like, remember whenever we were talking they must have plans for Bobby Lashley because he was running over everybody for a year.
I guess here's my problem with this. I kind of know that Goldberg was going to win because, I mean, you got to defend the kids. You got kids. If anybody messed with Dexter or Stella or anybody, I would expect to see a different 2-beer Zach Pullman. It'd be 6-beer Zach Pullman calling Jason to fly out to Portland. We got to kick somebody's ass. All that being said, I just hate this is why I hate the fact that the Hurt Business, quote unquote, got back together. It's only to set things like Crown Jewel up. You send Cedric and Shelton out with kendo sticks or whatever, and the one-legged fucking Goldberg takes these guys out. Granted they had a match earlier, but I mean, damn, you got kendo sticks. You can't fuck this motherfucker up from afar. Takes them out, knocks Bobby Lashley over into, obviously, and then inflatable, I guess, mat with the table on top of it. It looked pretty decent, but you can tell it wasn't, straight up tables. Goldberg gets the 1, 2, 3. He wins the match. I'll let you take it from here. It is what it is. Goldberg was eventually going to win at some point. I'm glad it wasn't for the title.
Yeah, and I don't understand that Goldberg had to win this. I thought it was a shit match because Goldberg comes out hot. He fucked with my son, and then he just sells for the entire match before he finally throws him through a table. Just have him do the classic Goldberg match. Remember how big people popped remember with Brock?
Yep.
And we're just oh man. And
count
then
the suplexes.
He just fucking did the fucking spear and the fucking jackhammer and people went up crazy. You could have saved everybody a whole lot of time, a whole lot of production, and you just had fucking Goldberg come out and do the Goldberg match. That's what he does best. That's what got him to be the biggest star in wrestling in the 90s. He was a fucking phenomenon.
Yeah. All bullshit aside.
And he wasn't great, but he was great. And
that weird, irony of things. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It wasn't anything. It wasn't 5-star matches, but I mean, the way he came out and just rolled over everybody. We hadn't seen that before.
They saw it over 100 times, and all they wanted to do was see it again.
Yeah,
every time.
Yeah, it seemingly never got old until they decided to put the taser in effect and 86 Goldberg and WCW. Let's move on to a personal favorite match of mine, just because of the tweet that Xavier Woods threw out. It was Xavier Woods versus Finn Balor for the King of the Ring final. Xavier Woods goes over. I said it on Twitter. I thought that in kayfabe style, Finn Balor should never lose this match. But if you were going to put the King of the Ring gimmick on one or the other, Xavier Woods really feels like he could be an exemplary King of the Ring. He's talked about doing this. He's kind of hyped this match up to be his biggest match of his career. They reward him later on down the line, obviously, and have him go over, and he's the new King of the Ring. Thoughts on King Xavier Woods?
Yeah, I mean, You got to give him the crown just because he fucked Paige. No, but really, joking aside, you're absolutely right. If you're gonna give the gimmick to somebody, it's him. He had talked about wanting the gimmick, and as soon as he got it, like, it was just a total blessing to see him like cut the promo, and he's just like, my cape fell off, I'll get it later.
Yeah.
And he's like pointing the scepter at the camera. He's like, I'm the king, and I tell you to cut the cameras. You cut the cameras, like doing the whole Kevin Dunn fucking shit.
Dude, I love that shit. I think this is going to be a good ride in some form or fashion. Go ahead.
All his boys are getting shit, you know. Like give him.
Yeah.
This. It doesn't over the top mean a whole lot, but it does mean something.
No,
and,
it was time for Xavier to get some flowers.
He's not going to be WWE champion like the other two, but he. Like, I'm not going to say, like, oh, you deserve it, but he's a great performer. He's a great act. Like,
he makes these guys a shit ton of money. I mean, ultimately, you know, he's a generator of money. New Day, I'm sure, does great in merchandise sales and things along those lines. I mean,
throw up, down, down. And the WWE umbrella, you know?
Yeah, like, it's time for to throw them. It's time for them to throw Xavier Woods a bone.
Yeah, and, like, my son, for instance, like, even though I'm a huge fan, he loves going to live shows with me. He likes the gimmick matches and stuff. Like, he was into, like, he walked in the room when I was watching Seth Rollins and Edge, and he's like, "Oh, he's like, I love these." Like, he loves like cage matches and stuff.
Get Dexter early. He'll be taking over the pod in like 6 or 7 years. Somebody's going to quit at that point, and then Dexter just slides in. It'll be perfect. Next up, we got Biggie, and where were you going to say anything?
I would say, but ultimately, he's not like a huge fan. But whenever you have like, you know, like Xavier Woods, like he can bring in that younger crowd that WWE needs so much, you know, through the video games and stuff. So,
yeah, I was just getting ready to say the video game is that way to draw people in if you can get him as a highlighted character on SmackDown. They're moving to SmackDown now. Yep. So. Yeah, I mean, him and Corbin could, you know, bump past or whatever. You know, you can have that feud. You can have. There's things you can do with Xavier Woods as King moving forward. It's a year. I mean, shit, I didn't even realize Kenny Omega was the champion for a year until I Googled it the other day. I was like, oh, shit, damn, okay. Time fucking flies. Before you know it, we'll be going back to Saudi crowning another King of the Ring, Queen's Crown tournament winner. I think Woods is an amazing fucking King of the Ring guy and winner, and I think ultimately this is going to do him wonders down the line, and I can't wait to see where this ends up going. Speaking of New Day, next up, Biggie versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. I said that Seth versus Edge I thought was the match of the night. This was probably a very good second. It's rare when you got two babyface characters that stay in character and then result a really good match. I thought this was a really good match. Big E goes over. They show a little respect after the fact. Big E basically telling Drew, and not even basically telling him, you know, this ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Drew gives him the little salute on the way out the door. I thought the key moment of the match is when Drew McIntyre made the same mistake that John Cena made against The Rock in their first match when Cena tried to do the people's elbow and Rock kind of turned it around, reversed it, put the rock bottom on him and won the match. Same thing happens here where Drew McIntyre decides he's going to do the big ending. It ends up being reversed. Big E puts the big ending on Drew McIntyre and gets the 1-2-3 to retain the title. Thoughts on the WWE Championship match?
Oh, totally solid. Like, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like, two baby faces. Really just absolutely solid technical match, and the right guy went over, and it was a lot of fun.
I really wish, and I know I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again this week. This is one of those matches I think might have suffered a little bit because they did the draft beforehand. If I think you did the draft afterwards, it gives that a little more drama that maybe Drew wins because you don't know who's going where just yet. So, I mean, like, maybe Drew wins. Maybe Sasha or Bianca wins over Becky Lynch. We'll talk about that in a second. Same thing with the main event. I just think that I don't think it was necessarily the smartest move to do draft first, Crown Jewel second. I think Crown Jewel should have been the way to blow these feuds off, and then you can reset with the draft.
Yeah, and you're totally right. And they should have done the draft after Survivor Series. They should do that every time. It's always the worst time.
Yeah, because now they're doing, it's always the Raw versus SmackDown theme, which I like, but you just switched the whole rosters. You don't have that, year long of having somebody be on Raw and, AJ Styles, being this Raw guy. And then, the next night he can easily go to SmackDown. I totally agree with you on that. I like if you're going to do a draft, that's probably where you should do it. But nonetheless, I like this match. The right guy went over, like you said. Seth versus
You're going to have to talk about the rest.
Yeah, no, I got it.
I did not see any of the rest.
I got it. I'll say, trust me, the main event is really what I want to talk about. The triple threat match, it is what it is because, well, let's just get into it. You had Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Becky Lynch retains with some fuckery. She does a roll up and grabs the rope on closest to her left or her right, whatever the case may be, using the ropes to get the pin. I believe it was on Bianca Belair. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. I guess the match was good. Okay, it was a good triple threat match. I'm not going to sit up here and poo-poo that. I thought Saudi really got into this women's match versus Selena Vega versus Piper Niven, where you could literally hear a pin drop in that match. I guess my question is this. You had Charlotte Flair retain her title with some fuckery and a disqualification over Bianca Belair on Monday night. You have now Becky Lynch retain the title once again with fuckery here at Crown Jewel. Both champions are going to switch to the other show. Are we getting another trading off of the titles? Tell me that's not going to happen.
That's going to happen.
God damn it. Dude, I told you don't tell me that shit. Okay, so Bianca. So basically, what you're telling me is Bianca loses her title match on Monday.
Well, and it just also gives Charlotte another title reign because she'll then get the switch because then she'll go from one to the other.
Damn you, Two Beer. See, you didn't pick up what I was putting down. You're supposed to say, no, Bianca beats Charlotte on Monday, and that's how you do this shit. But you're probably right, unfortunately. The main event, obviously, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. The wild card coming up into this, even at the kickoff, and I think it was the kickoff show earlier today where they interviewed Paul Heyman and I can't think of who the Irish guy is his name escapes me, but ultimately he asked Paul Heyman, where does his allegiance lie? And Paul says that he's coming down with the Universal Champion Roman Reigns and he's leaving with the Universal Champion and didn't say a name. So that really intrigued me coming into this match. The match itself I thought was pretty good. The key point in this match is where Paul Heyman pushes the title in between a prone Roman Reigns and a prone Brock Lesnar. Literally right in the middle. I don't think you could have pushed it any better than where Paul Heyman pushed it. And
that's awesome. And
now it's I don't remember what he said, but it was basically like, do what you need to do. And he, after he pushed the title into the ring, Brock grabs it first. Roman grabs it. They do a mini tug of war. The Usos come out. Super kick, double super kick. Brock Lesnar. I believe it was a spear. Well, no, he hits Brock with the title belt. Probably a spear later. 1, 2, 3. The match ends. Roman Reigns retains. to me, once again, the takeaway after the match is the look on Paul Heyman's face. I'm on the boat of, I don't think this is what Paul Heyman really wanted to let happen, because it was kind of like the, oh shit, that just happened. Let me kind of walk with the bloodline up the ramp and get the fuck up out of here before Brock realizes what happened. Now, all that being said, obviously you didn't see the match. I just kind of filled you in on what happened. How long are we going to ride heel Roman versus Brock Lesnar? Because obviously this feud isn't over.
That sounds super cool, and I'm looking forward to watching it now. Not looking forward to watching the women's match as much, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I think we're in it for the long haul. I can't think. I don't have any trust in WWE building up another star for Roman Reigns for WrestleMania.
Drew McIntyre?
And I don't. Yeah, maybe.
That's the only
maybe.
That's the only guy that I can think of, and obviously I don't have the SmackDown updated roster or whatever when it starts tomorrow night. That's the only.
As much as Vince likes Drew, because he obviously liked him, he carried him through the pandemic and stuff. Does he like him more than Brock? For a big WrestleMania, especially when you're in a wrestling war. I don't know if he does.
I agree with you on that, and I was going to say that he did have Drew beat Brock, but that was with no fans, and it didn't necessarily go over very well, at least from what I can tell, or what I can remember. That said, Drew kind of is owed, a little love for getting WWE through the pandemic as their WWE champion. I guess the way if you wanted to repay him, having him become champion in front of a live crowd is probably the best way to do it. I don't think that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in St. Louis.
Yeah, right. I'm about to say, knowing my luck, that'll be the fucking match in St. Louis, and I'll be at fucking work like, God damn it, motherfucker.
Oh, you should take off that Saturday. I thought about flying back, but it's WWE, and I just can't do it.
Dude, and it's, this is just going to sound absolutely horrible, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Out of the big four, I haven't seen SummerSlam, so that's the one I want to see the most. I've seen Royal Rumble twice. Once here when Sheamus won, and then once in Arizona where you had Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, which is kind of funny, looking back now, they won in Arizona. It's not really, don't get me wrong, I love the Royal Rumble. I just don't feel the necessity to take off work and possibly give up $200 to give $200 to WWE. Because, I mean, these tickets ain't cheap. These motherfuckers are going.
They are not cheap.
They are going for like $150, $200 a pop, and this is, not very good seats to begin with. I'm good on that. You know what I'm saying? I can go to work, make $200, come home, feed the cats, get baked, get a beer, and watch this shit right here in my house for free. Or I'm sorry, for the $4.99 or whatever the case may be. So, like I said, if it was under normal circumstances, I might go. It's just, if it was a Sunday, better choice of words. Now you might tempt me to go because it's Sunday, a nigga ain't got shit to do, and I'm off. Okay. Now you might get me. As it stands right now,
you ain't got any boxes to move.
I'm not saying a motherfucker get fired on his day off. That would suck. I would just say this. I'm not sure how long Roman Reigns versus Brock goes. My guess right now is it's probably going at least, like you said, to Royal Rumble. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't get another Roman versus Brock match. Brock winning the Rumble isn't beyond the realm of possibility.
Yeah, because, I mean, who else wins the Rumble is the thing. unless you have Drew win it, kind of early predictions. It doesn't. They just don't have a lot going on right now. It's like the same handful of guys. I mean, like Seth has won it, and Edge won it last year. Orton was a groan win, but I mean, we got like good stuff out of it, but It was like a huge groan at the time. You just really don't. They don't have a lot at the top. They don't have a lot of guys built up at all. And usually the Rumble is for building a guy up, but they don't even really have a lot of guys that are like mega credible in the middle. I can see if Big E would not have won in the middle of the year, I can see him. But yeah, it's tough.
Damn, that's crazy. If Brock wins the Royal Rumble, that's that's gonna be real interesting. But let's cross that bridge when we get there. That'll do it for our 3 count. All right, let's talk a little odds and ends before we get out of here. I just want to touch on NXT for a hot second. To me, it's next week is going to be their Halloween Havoc pay-per-view, or pay-per-view in quotes. I'm kind of interested to see if they're going to pull the trigger on Braun Breaker becoming the champion. I just don't see how you don't do it at this point. This is NXT 2.0. And as much as, I like Ciampa, as much as I like to see Johnny Gargano come out and open the show and basically throw out the challenge to Carmelo Hayes for the North American Championship, I think these guys are here for a reason. We kind of talked about this earlier. These are the veterans are going to get the younger guys over. Johnny Gargano is going to get Carmelo Hayes over. Ciampa, assumingly, I think is going to get Braun Breaker over when he drops the title to him next week. What's your interest on Halloween Havoc next week?
I tell you what, you do the math. Tommaso Ciampa, you ain't got a 33rd in chance of winning. Then you add Samoa Joe's fat ass to the mix, who's sitting in the back burner. You ain't got no hope at Halloween Havoc.
Oh, shit. You crazy, boy. Why do they not? I just don't understand why they don't acknowledge the fact that he is a Steiner. He did the Steiner fucking recliner, for God's sakes, and they can't even say that. Oh, there's a new move from Braun Breaker. I just was like, dude, just roll my eyes. Just bad. He's a great talent. It's just the disconnect between what WWE wants you to know and what the reality is blows my mind. Last thought, and we can get up out of here. Mandy Rose versus Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship. Mandy Rose has, I guess, stepped her game up. She's in the title picture at some place she's never been on the main roster. Are they going to pull the trigger on Mandy Rose and make her champ?
I don't know. I think if they did, it would only be to maybe like transition to like one of the women that she has, like a Gigi Dolan or something. I think that they don't have like a ton of depth there. I mean, Io Shirai is still there for whatever reason, and
I'll say shit. You can keep her
thing
there.
With Dakota Kai. She's still there for whatever reason. Like,
yeah, where's she been? God damn, I thought she'd have been drafted at this point.
But yeah, she did not get drafted. So
wow.
I don't think so. I think Raquel will probably keep it because she's still kind of a newer talent. She still fits that mold of like, somewhat newer. I think Braun Breaker takes that fucking thing for sure.
Yeah, I would be stunned if he did not win that match. There would be some serious fuckery going on there.
And I'm fine with it. Like, that's cool. Like, for what that show is right now,
Braun Breaker needs to be the champion.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. It is what it is.
No, it is what it is. I don't have a problem with it. It's NXT 2.0. And like I said before in previous podcasts, I didn't watch it when it was more developmental versus what the NXT that I'm new and love, where you had, Aaron Neville, a.k.a. Pac, and Sami Zayn, wrestling for basically the NXT title. And that's how it started. You brought in Kevin Owens. Boom, 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 boom. That's the NXT I remember. I'm not saying that it's better or this NXT 2.0 is better or it's worse. It just right now it's not grabbing me. It's too many new characters, and the characters that they are trying to develop just they're not really working for me. Tony D'Angelo, I mean, that's a soprano if I've ever seen one. It's a bad stereotype on top of it. It's shit like that where it kind of makes me kind of like, ugh, I don't want to watch this. Imperium wrestling as, baby faces. I'm like, dude, come on. Imperium are not baby faces. Let them just be heels and be done with it. It was just a weird episode of NXT. I'm having a hard time getting on board with it. I really am. I don't know if I can be able to watch this too much longer. I don't watch AEW.
It almost doesn't televise. Like it's a thing to where like it doesn't even need to be on cable. Like this is like a network or a Peacock television show. It's like a 205.
No, I would agree with that totally. I don't really see a reason that USA would want to pay for. I shouldn't say this. I mean, there are people that like this NXT. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just, like I said, it does not do anything for me. I don't watch AEW Dark or Dark Elevation for these very same reasons. It's just, I think it would be better talent. It's the whole developmental concept for me. It just doesn't work. That's just me.
It just doesn't have the same allure as like amateur porn. Like sometimes like porn's like too professional and there's like too much lighting and like everything's like too perfect, and that's why amateur like rules, but like it just doesn't translate to wrestling at all.
Oh, that's number 2.
This is Banned from Ringside.
All right, I think that's going to be it. I've taken your time up, Two Beer. I've taken up my time. The cats are looking at me crazy, so let's get the fuck up out of here. What is it? Oh, yeah. There's a trillion of podcasts out there. Thank you for listening to ours. For Bill Vega, for Aaron Vega, for Edna Mae Bebe, the Vega clan, for Sideways in Time, for Patriot Pat, for Lucha Chris, for Vice, thank you for the AKA, for Zach Pullman out there holding down BFR West. I'll talk to you next week. I'm your special guest host, JCB, Jason Cornelius Bell, and everybody remember, boo the heels, boo, bitch.